I'm Teen Zekas.
And hey, I'm Ileka Follette. We are business owners and moms with corporate backgrounds, and we are all about getting Black women paid in both corporate and business.
And you're listening to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast.
Let's go.
All right, welcome back to Getting Black Women Paid. Today's topic is near and dear to my heart. We're going to be talking about the balancing act, navigating motherhood and business. So, being a mom and running a business at the same time. I'm sure we've mentioned on previous episodes that we are both mothers, but Ileka, tell us about your motherhood. Who do you mother?
Yes. So I'm Ileka Follette, and I have 4 children, and I've been an entrepreneur since 2017. And prior to that, I was in corporate. So, so these 4 children, ages 9 to almost 16. So we had them back to back. And so balancing for the last, 7 years, motherhood and running a business, it's not a game. And so I'm excited to talk about this topic because
It's not a game. That's
yeah, I think it impacts a lot of us.
I love it. So I'm Teen Zekas. I am a mother of 2. I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and those ages are also not a joke.
Yeah.
And I have been in business for about 2 years, which is half of my youngest's life.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's serious. I mean, I don't even know where we wanna start. I feel like I mean, women in general, but also specifically Black women with that
Mhm.
strong Black woman trope and everything,
Mhm.
and you gotta do it all. I
Right.
feel like there is this endless pressure of, doing your business perfectly, being perfect at your job, being the perfect mom, taking care of your
Mhm.
house, taking care of your spouse,
Yeah.
everything, and
Mhm.
somehow you gotta do all of those things well at the same time.
Exactly. There's this feeling like, and then if you don't, you have so
When
much.
you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Because no one is actually.
Right.
Right. So when you don't, to your point, when you don't, there's this feeling of failure. You
Mm,
know, I'll never forget, actually, because it makes me think about mom guilt, right? So the first thing that comes to me when I think about mom guilt is back before I even started my business, had one child at the time, and he was like, maybe a year old. And I decided that I wanted to start getting back into the gym. I don't even know if it was a year yet, but I wanted to start getting back into the gym. And so I would go to the gym at 7 p.m. because my husband's home from work. I actually worked from home back then. I know nobody else worked from home in like 2008, but I was.
trailblazer.
Right. Trailblazer, right? Pre-COVID, working from home. But I remembered I'd go to the gym and I'd be there on the treadmill, like crying,
Mm,
literally crying because I felt so bad that I was exercising instead of being there with my kid,
mm,
because at the time I just had the one. And so that type of guilt just from exercising, it extended to work, it extended to all other aspects.
right.
Um, and so eventually, there was a point where I actually began turning down when I was in corporate, I turned down positions.
Mm,
I turned down opportunities to move forward and do different things because of that same mom guilt. And it
yes,
goes through so many different aspects as we're trying to balance mom and, being a mother and running a business. So,
right.
you know, and even shows up when we're running the business. I know for me, it showed up quite a bit over the past, 7 or 8 years, however long I've been, however long I've had this business.
What is time? Nobody
Right.
knows.
Exactly. But we get to, I remember, when I first started the business, my my whole mission was I get to create my own schedule.
Yep.
I get to, be a mom and go to all my kids' stuff and still make money and utopia is what I get to live in, right?
Right. Right.
And I was like, "So I'm gonna stop working at a certain time. I'm gonna do all these things." And sure enough, as a brand new business owner, I had to learn. I had to figure out how am I gonna sell this service that I have? How am I gonna build an audience? How am I going to, you know, uh, how am I gonna even help my clients once I've sold them? I
Right.
gotta build programs. We gotta do all these things.
Right.
And there's 4 little people by now who are sitting there like, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, what's for dinner? Can I have a snack? Can I" you know?
Yep.
And you sit there like, "Give me a second. Give me a sec. Wait, mommy just has to finish this one thing.
Oh
Wait
my
1
god.
second." You know?
You are
Go
I've
right into it, right?
I've lived that exact moment. Aren't
Mhm.
you done with that thing? Did you forget? Because you said you just had one more thing. Oh my gosh.
Yes. And
Yes.
you and you feel like you were just an absolute like, you begin to feel like you're failing everywhere. I
Right.
know that's been me. Honestly, that's been me more than a few times in business. Like, it wasn't just when I started. It happened again when COVID happened. You
Yep.
know?
Yep.
When it happened, my business boomed, it exploded. It was so amazing, like, so many clients. It was awesome. I'm doing sales calls. People are converting. I've got so many clients. I'm working, working, working. I'm so proud of that. But guess what? Everybody's home, and I'm in an office with a door closed.
Yep.
Did not feel good. Did
Mm.
not feel good at all.
I gotta tell you, when you mentioned the start of COVID, so I was not working from home until COVID, and I was on maternity leave actually when COVID hit.
Woo.
And so it wasn't until when I went back to work, I started remotely. And so
Mhm,
my older child had never seen me work from home, at least not regularly.
mhm.
And one day she told her grandma something. She said like, um, I don't I don't have a mom or I need another mom. And she was like, "What
Oh.
do you mean?" And she said, "Well, I think her computer is broken. It's never gonna be fixed." And she said, "What?" She said, "She's always working on her computer."
It's
She
broken.
thought I was trying to fix it like 8 hours a day. But
Poor
she
thing.
said, "Mommy's always working on her computer.
Mhm.
She's never gonna fix it, so I need a new mom." Like, she just thought I was done parenting her
Oh
because of
my
how
god.
much time she saw me
Yeah.
not parenting her, right? Like, because I
Mhm.
usually when I would leave and come back, I come home and I'm home and I'm
Yeah,
with her and we're doing whatever we
right.
wanna do. Whereas with this, it was now, "You're right here, not paying attention to me, not
Mhm.
giving me what I want or need." And that was, oh, just I mean,
Mm.
heartbreak.
Oh my gosh. I I got goosebumps from that story. I almost felt like I was gonna cry right now
Right,
as if it
right.
just happened.
Let
Because
alone I was a hormonal, had just had a baby.
like,
I was like,
you
"Oh."
probably you probably went immediately to your husband like, "I'm the worst mom ever."
Right, ready to quit. One,
Ready
uh
to quit your job, right?
right, right.
Yeah.
And, even another aspect I wanna talk about is just the pressure, right? Because I could not quit my job. I was the only one working. So
Yeah.
my spouse was a full-time dad,
Mhm.
and I've been the primary breadwinner since we started having kids. And
Mhm.
so another layer of being a mom and an entrepreneur is, I don't have the space to be like, "Well, let's see if this works. Maybe it won't.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll flop and we'll try again." It's like, I gotta pay the mortgage. We gotta buy the food. We gotta clothe these kids, right? There's this added pressure of, it's not just me in my 20s, taking risks and living life. I'm like, I have
Who cares? Yeah.
other lives to take care of. And
Right.
and my risks, they didn't sign on for those risks. So
Mhm.
when I say I really believe in myself and I believe in this product or this service
Right.
and I'm gonna bet on it,
Mhm.
they're having to sign on to that too. And
Yeah.
that's a whole other layer of
Pressure.
pressure, right?
Yeah, the pressure is wild with that because the thing is, it's so funny that you mentioned that, right? So as the primary breadwinner, it's like either this is happening and and we're doing the thing, or we don't, we don't pay the mortgage this month, or we don't
Right.
pay the light bill. Cable's definitely off already.
Mhm,
Like,
mhm.
we're just managing internet,
Right,
like
we're just doing the basics, right.
yeah, exactly. And the thing is, it's real pressure that's there, you know?
Mhm.
And so you're having to figure out and navigate what to do with that.
Yep,
Um, and then on my end, so on the other side of it, like, my husband is part, we were splitting the breadwinner thing.
sure.
And then when I became an entrepreneur, at the beginning, when you first start your business, you're making $4 total, right, for the year.
That is if you are not running a deficit,
Right,
you're in the
exactly.
black, it's by $4.
I wanna say my first year I made, my first year, 2017, I don't think I made anything.
Mhm,
My second year, so it was because 'cause I'd started, like, September, so in
sure,
those 4 months, and started really just as a YouTube channel. But then the second year, I did okay, I guess, for an early entrepreneur. It was like 40 or 50, something like that, right? And I remember still feeling like I'm failing because I had put so much pressure on myself
yep,
to make up for what I was no longer making in corporate.
right, right.
And no one else told me I had to. And I
Mhm,
wonder, when I think about, like, the folks listening, wonder how many are putting that level of pressure on themselves when it may not even be fully necessary.
mhm,
Of course, like, as a single mom or as the main breadwinner, things like that, you're gonna have that level of pressure because you're the breadwinner, right? You've
right,
got to pay the mortgage, you've got to do these things. For the people who are single moms or the people who are the main breadwinner in their family,
right,
right? But then even the ones like me who we were sharing the responsibility, the financial responsibility for things,
mhm,
I still put a ton of pressure on myself.
yep,
To the point where it's like, if I didn't hit this financial goal or do this, then I was not happy. So in 2020, when COVID happened, I was literally working probably 12 to 14 hours a day in my office.
oh,
And I would come out every so often to, like, try and spend some time with the family, but back in for a sales call, back in to, create a program, back in for different things. And it got to the point, in a similar story where the kids were like, you know, "Well, mommy's always working, so, mommy works all the time, well, all mommy does is work." "Well, mommy, you're never here." And
mm,
it's like, "Oh, shoot, never here? And I'm not even the breadwinner." You know?
right,
Like, I'm doing all this stuff,
mhm,
and at this point, I'm looking at it, and even though I'd gotten to the point where, the incomes were close, right? Even though
right,
I'd brought it back up close to what I was making in corporate, and it's still, like, 2021 or whatever, I still felt like, "Oh my goodness." Like, yes, I'm at corporate, but I felt like in corporate, I had more time for my kids, you know?
right, right, I
Like,
could actually be done at 5, 9 to 5,
right.
and then be done, put it away, see you tomorrow, see you on Monday.
Exactly. So I
Yeah,
started thinking, "Is it worth it?" I remember thinking, like, "Is this worth it?
yeah,
Do I need to go back? Does it make sense to continue juggling motherhood and
right,
a
right.
business?" You
Well,
know?
and when you do think about is it worth it, um, a few things come to mind. One is whatever your why is for your business, right? For me,
Mhm.
one of the things is I want my daughter to see that her mom is her own boss.
Yes.
Obviously, I don't want that to be instead of spending time with her, right? But that is
Mhm.
one of the parts of my why that keeps me going. And one thing I know that you help many entrepreneurs with is you know, running your business in such a way where you can achieve that balance and you can set your own schedule. And, maybe that's
Mhm.
a conversation for another episode. But um, I think the biggest piece that keeps me going with it is knowing that I do have the choice of how I'm gonna do this, right? I can
Mhm.
decide to set certain boundaries. I can decide I'm only taking meetings on certain days or,
Mhm.
we can build in that flexibility, but it takes work and it
Yeah.
takes intentionality, right? It's not just gonna happen on its own that suddenly I'm getting all my stuff done and I don't need to work at night, you know? But,
Right.
so
Mhm.
I guess to the moms out there who are like, "Can I do this?"
Yeah.
Um, the answer is yes, but it will
Yeah.
involve
Yeah. Mhm.
giving yourself grace, right?
Right.
Not putting those expectations on yourself that come from nowhere, right? Suddenly
Yeah.
I need to be I need to, in year 1, be making what I was making in corporate, and I need to
Exactly.
be on my own schedule, and I need to be super mom, right? Give
Right.
yourself grace and
Mhm.
decide what's the most important and build your systems around that, build your
Yeah.
business around that.
Mhm. I love how you said that because it does come to that. It's like assuming that everything needs to happen tomorrow,
Mm,
by tomorrow. Like tomorrow's the deadline for you to start making, 7 figures in your business. Is tomorrow really the deadline? Like, why? Who
right.
created that? Who said tomorrow it had to happen by tomorrow?
Yep,
And that's it's what we do because we're putting that level of pressure on ourselves. But to your point, it's like when you decide, you know what? It can take longer than tomorrow. And it's okay. Let's build a plan and really create a strategy for the growth
mhm,
and own the fact that it's okay if it takes longer than a year.
yep,
Because guess what? Apple, Google, Microsoft, you name it, bad boy, right? I love throwing the bad boy, right? Even if you go into like LeBron James and all he does, none of that was created in a year. None of it.
right,
Like,
right,
I remember hearing stories about going to bad boy because I can't help myself. I remember hearing about, like, Puff Daddy going from Howard University in DC and taking a train, like, every day to New York or something to New
mm,
York City to do some A&R, right? Like,
mm,
just doing that, and that wasn't like it wasn't like after doing that for 6 months, he was now owner of Bad Boy. It
right,
took years, and
right,
if I look at, you know, um, Serena Williams, right? We all saw the movie about Serena and Venus and their dad. I can't remember his name. Um, but that movie, right?
yeah,
We all saw that movie, how for years they were at the tennis courts practicing,
yeah,
doing those things. And we look at Steve Jobs and I forgot the other Steve's
the other
name.
Steve.
Yeah,
Y'all
Steve
know who
Jobs
we
and
mean.
the other Steve, right? We we all saw how they've told the stories about how they were in their garage for
Right,
years, and I remember seeing Apple computers when I was in, like, you know, I think it was, like, 5th grade or some 3rd grade, like, I remember seeing Apple computers then, and it wasn't, like, a big deal, it wasn't like they were making a ton of money.
right, they
Apple
were
didn't pop
clunky.
off heavy until the darn iPhone,
Right,
right? Like, let's be honest, that's when they popped off. Now they're a $1 trillion industry, but they started in, like, the '70s and '80s
mm, mm,
and became a multi-billion dollar industry in, like, what, the 2000s? Like,
yeah.
that's some
Okay,
time.
so we're not gonna try to do 30 years, but
Right,
I
we have to do 30
but
years.
I understand what you're
Yeah,
saying, and I also think that we can if it is going to take years to build this out, we can also bring our children along with us. I try to
yes.
explain to my six-year-old,
Mhm.
what a mortgage is, right? Like,
Right.
she says, why do you always want to work instead of playing with
Wonderful.
me?" Right?
Oh,
Why do you wanna work instead of playing or why are you always working instead of whatever? And so I kind of explain, we talk about what money is and we talk about,
mhm.
because when I did say I have to pay for things like our house and electricity and clothes and food, and she said, "But we already have our house." So I'm like, "Well," so I'm trying to explain
Not
like
completely.
and I and I'm trying to explain, like, how
Here's
much
how
money
taxes
is, and
work.
I'm like
Right.
but, to let them know the reason I'm doing this is
Mhm.
because I care for you and
Right.
is to care for you in a certain way
Mhm.
that wouldn't be possible if I wasn't making some money,
Yeah,
right? And so you can
exactly.
invite them into what you're doing and let them know, um, this is for you. I wanna
Yeah.
show you what hard work looks like, and
Mm,
I want to give you
mhm.
the best that I can.
Yeah, I love that. Something I started doing with my daughter, actually pretty early on, before I put a ton of pressure on myself. One of the things that I began doing with her is, because they were home, I didn't have a job anymore, so we weren't doing a nanny anymore or daycare
Right.
anymore, right? So we were doing like we had like a really, really like something with the school district where you pay like $100 a month or something like that, and they could come for like an hour a day
Sure.
or something like that, right? So we had that.
Yeah.
But outside of that, they were with me. And so what I began to do is create opportunities. And this is for, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of moms out there who have young kids or even kids who are maybe your kid is home from school today because, either school's out, because I feel like school's out all the time now, or we had school every day, it seemed like, but their school's out all the time. So either school's out, right? Or they're homesick or something like that. I would create like a little palette here and I'd have her doing like she's working and I'm working. So she had a little computer that was like, the kid computer. It was like, right. And so
I
she's on
love
her computer
that.
doing whatever and then writing something on the side because obviously that's what you do when you work.
Yeah.
So she's doing that and she's writing something and I'm doing mine and I'm writing something. And I'd say, okay, so we've got to work for about 30 minutes, right? So we're both working and
Mhm.
then go and, have lunch or we can play
Love
something.
that.
Yep.
Little
Or
coworker.
right. And then as she got a little older, because my son would be doing something too, and he's 2 years older. So for him, he would be on an actual like a computer that was doing a little more. Hers did like, A, B, like it was really
Sure.
like frog level. His was a little older, so now he could do, like, words, and he would, like, be able to say the words and read the word or whatever,
Mhm.
and I would do that when I wouldn't have calls. So I would schedule and block out certain time with no calls, and that's when I would do those things, and it really worked. It really worked so they felt like they were a part of things. And I
Yeah.
bring them in on, if anybody's ever watched my YouTube channel, so I've got a YouTube channel I've had since 2017. That's kinda how I started.
Yeah.
And you can always put in Ileka and you'll find it, right? But my YouTube, what I used to do is I'd bring them into my YouTube videos. So we'd
Mhm.
be exercising together or making some sort of meal together or doing something, and that's was part of work.
Right.
So
But
for
they're part of
them, yeah, they felt like they were a part of it.
it.
So when I began adding all that extra pressure to myself a few years later in 2020, and I was doing so many sales calls and things like
Yeah.
that, they were like, "Wait, so what about our computers?" They were no longer a part of it, and so
Right.
that's when all the mommy loves her computer stuff started coming up.
Yeah.
So when we get back to leaning into those boundaries, leaning into those creative solutions, we get to be better at, and I'll say better at, but I don't even wanna say better, I wanna say be more intentional about
Yeah.
navigating motherhood and business because this is an area that we've got to be intentional about. Because
Mm.
we only get and I know that the folks who are listening to this will feel us on this, right? We only get a certain amount of time with these little people that came from us.
Mm.
You know, there's
Mm.
these little people that we just adore, and we only get a certain amount of time with them because at some point they start getting older and stinky and start having attitudes and don't want to hang out with us. So,
Oh my
you know,
gosh.
but they no, they still wanna hang out, but then they come back. So, but we only get we only get a year of them being 7, a year of them being 17. So during that time, we get to embrace that, and that's why setting those boundaries becomes so important and
Mm.
creating, and developing creative solutions to spend time with them while doing it, and bringing them in on the process, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, of, "Hey, here's how mortgages work. Here's how taxes work. So, you know what? Hey, you can be doing this with mommy. How much do you think our mortgage costs?" What can you pay for?
Right. How many how many visits from the tooth fairy have you had? You've
Right.
been saving those up?
Exactly, because that's what we need at this
Oh
but
my
but
goodness.
it's super important though,
Yeah.
because we only get this time with them, and the business is super important at the same time because part of that time is in part I know for me personally, part of the reason I put so much pressure on myself is because I wanted to do, like, trips with them,
Mm.
and I was like, "I no longer have this job that I had, so I've gotta be bringing the income so we could do our
Right.
family trip to Ghana or wherever it is that I've decided that we should be going, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
And so I put so much pressure on myself, and
Mhm.
it's just releasing some of that pressure and saying, "You know what? It's okay if Ghana is moved to 2025 versus 2021." I mean, shoot, we
Right.
couldn't go nowhere in 2021 anyway, but
Right.
it's
Yeah.
okay if it's moved. And giving yourself a little bit of grace and saying, "Hey, you know what? We still get to make it there. We still get to make this happen, and let's enjoy ourselves." And if we don't get to go to Ghana, we get to go to the African History Museum,
Right.
downtown, right?
Right.
We get to still do something
Right.
together
Yeah.
as a family that gets to be creative,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
know?
I think the biggest takeaways for me are, 1, just remembering your why and
Mhm.
figuring out if what you're doing is living into those values,
Yeah.
right? If your reason for building the business is you wanna leave a legacy for your kids, then you also don't want that business to be taking away all your time from your kids, right? So, right, remembering your why, and then, as you said, being intentional and getting
Mhm.
creative about how to balance those things and how to bring some overlap where it's appropriate, right? You wanna separate things if you're if, obviously, you don't want your kids climbing on you during meetings and things if that's not the kind of work you do, but
Right.
to find those creative ways to say, "Okay, well, yeah, I love that, like,
Mhm.
mommy's gonna be working, and you could be my little coworker,"
Mhm.
and then you're really actually setting that example, and they're
Mhm.
getting to be a part of it. So
Yeah.
I love that, having the creative solutions, and then setting those boundaries and saying, "Hey, this is gonna be a business that, closes up at 3 because I'm gonna pick up the kids, and
Mhm.
that's gonna be our time together," or, whatever it is that's going to make you feel
Mhm.
whole in
Yeah.
your 2 lives as a mother and an entrepreneur.
Absolutely, and I mean, everybody probably heard my kids just come in now as loud as absolutely fine.
My kids actually just came home too, so I'm like
What's so funny is it reminded me of I remember I had a coach, she's amazing, she's actually one of my really good friends. Her name's Rashana Price, and we'll actually have her on here as a guest one day. But one of the things she did, she said, I remember, because at the time, I used to always apologize for my kids and making noise and stuff,
Mm,
or I'd be in a sales call or some sort of, or even a client call, and I'd be like, to the kids, they can't see it because 'cause I'm doing it under here, right? Under the
but you'd be
so I'm like
shushing them and trying to
right,
yeah. Mhm.
and one of the things that she did, I will never forget, she'd be like, "Your kids are more important than this. Whatever you're doing, your kids are more important." And she said, "So, if you're having that call and unless you're going, like, in deep doing, like, some deep mindset work with them where their unconscious mind and all that stuff, like, okay. But if it's just a regular call and you guys are talking about maybe growing your business or whatever, and this person says that I mean, and your daughter comes in and wants to tell you about her day, you could say, 'Hey, give me just 1 second,' and, and address whatever she's saying and say, 'Hey, mommy's on a call, but I will be out there in 10 minutes.' And then you get back to this. If that person has an issue with that, that is not someone you wanna work with." And I was like,
Mm,
"Oh my goodness, this is so true." And I remember when she said that, and I was like, "I need to stop apologizing for my kids and doing all this because it makes them feel like they don't matter as much. This is more important than them." And in
mm,
that moment, like, when she told me that, I'll never forget it, I literally shifted everything, and I was like
mm.
everything went from whatever it was that I was doing to try and stop them from walking in the room, right?
For those who are listening, there's like a finger wave and a
That's what oh, yeah, that's right. It's all this extra, went from going through all that to just saying, "You know what? Give me just a second," to the person on the phone, on the Zoom call,
right.
and saying and addressing the problem, the whatever it was, whether it be like, "I got an A on this," or, "Mommy, it was a tough day." Whatever it is, it was just like, "Okay, this is really important to me," letting them know that what they're saying is important, and give mommy 10 minutes. I'll be off this call and then we'll come and talk about it because this is definitely important, you
Yeah.
know?
And then actually be off the call in 10 minutes and actually talk to them, because that's one thing I do. I'm like, "Okay, I'm just gonna do this one email, and then I'll be ready with you."
Uh-huh.
And then
Yeah.
20 minutes later, she's like, "Did you forget?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I forgot." Like,
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
It was
Oh, I
actually
love that though.
sticking to that commitment. That's so true, sticking to it
Mhm,
and saying, "Okay." And sometimes what I've actually done a couple of times is when I've said the 10 minutes, because 'cause I've done that so many times, 10 minutes and then not come, what I've
mhm.
started to do is actually put a little 10-minute timer on my phone
Yeah.
and be like, "Okay, when that 10 minutes is up, if this whether this email is completed or not,
Mhm.
I'm getting up because I've made this commitment, and I don't wanna be a liar to my kid
Mm,
and to myself," you
mhm.
know?
Yeah. Plus, I'm
Yeah.
trying to teach my kid about, like, the concept of time. So if I'm like 10
Right,
minutes and an hour goes by,
right,
next time I'm like,
exactly.
"You have 10 more minutes to play." She's like, "Well, I got."
Look, we got forever. And teaching them integrity, you
Yes.
know? Like,
Yeah.
really sticking to your word and what you're saying that you're gonna do, and teaching them that even though it's like we're always trying to balance it all, that may be tough, but what we can be teaching them at the same time is that you can do it, and you get to create these boundaries that align, and showing them and working to be the example for them is super key because I know for me, there were times when I was a great example for him, and there
Mhm.
were times where I was working 14 hours a day,
Yep.
trying to, in scarcity, chasing after XYZ, and it just wasn't working, right?
Mhm.
The money sure was coming in, but I felt like I could have probably even done better had I been not been as much scarcity, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, we are so funny. I was like, "This will be a short episode. We'll just talk about the issues and wrap it up." I think this has been our longest episode yet, and I
Love it.
still have so much more to say.
I know.
But I do think in the interest
Yeah.
of, keeping these somewhat brief,
Yeah.
um, we'll leave it there, but let us know if you wanna talk more about motherhood,
Yeah.
and we can do a follow-up episode
Mhm.
and touch on other aspects of it, so, let us know if this is the kind of thing you wanna hear more of. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, I think we'll end it there, and we'll see you in the next one.
All right. See you guys soon. Take care.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Getting Black Women Paid podcast. If you want to hear more episodes like this one, subscribe wherever you're listening now.
And if you loved what you heard, be sure to leave us a review. And make sure you share the podcast with incredible Black women in your life so we can continue getting Black women paid.
All right, we'll see you in the next one.